Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to respond to a couple of hard Brexit politicians who seem to think that it's everyone else's job to make a success of the Brexit that they said would be marvellous. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, John Redwood, a hard Brexit Conservative MP and part-time corpse, as well as Foreman, a former Brexit Party MEP until he voted himself out of a job, have been piping up again, as they seem to be representing the current Brexiteer narrative of blaming everyone else for the shambles that they asked for. I thought I'd draw attention to a few things. So, John Redwood first. Now, he tweeted recently, "Challenge to ministers, what have you done to take advantage of our new freedoms out of the EU? When do we get the tax cuts, the rebuilding of the UK's fishing and farming industries, the intelligent use of UK public sector buying and policy to create more jobs in the UK?" Now, there's a lot going on in there, and all of it is the long predicted shift from Brexiteers going from Brexit is going to be fantastic, we should have done it years ago, to Brexit is not responsible for all the disasters that began the day of Brexit. It's the fault of the government for not implementing it right. It's a classic cowardly dodging of responsibility, but let's take it a bit at a time anyway. So, challenge to ministers to take advantage of our new freedoms out of the EU. Now, I would challenge John Redwood to name some freedoms that we have gained as a result of Brexit. But in actual fact, I can name some freedoms that ministers are taking advantage of. The freedom to dilute and eventually destroy human rights laws, as well as worker and consumer protections, environmental standards. In other words, Brexit has given government ministers more freedoms to remove ours. But I don't think you'll hear too many members of the government wanting to draw attention to this. So I will return to my never-ending wait for the likes of Redwood to name a single freedom that came from leaving the EU that is to our benefit. He then talks about tax cuts. A couple of things here. One, tax raising is a matter for individual member states. Budgets were and are set by government. So he surely can't mean that the government they had their tax policies decided by the EU and now we have the option of abolishing it. So he must mean that we somehow now have more money as a result of, savings. He's not clear, but Brexiteers like him did certainly try and push the line that being members of the EU cost us. So leaving, of course, means that we save more money and so we can afford to have lower rates of tax. But that brings me on to the second point. The cost savings, which don't actually exist, but Brexiteers claimed were supposed to be spent on the NHS, not tax cuts. I don't remember anything about tax cuts on the side of a big red bus. I remember £350 million a week to the NHS that hasn't materialised. The next point will have you seriously scratching your head, I suspect. Rebuilding the UK's fishing and farming industries. Seriously? I mean, Nigel Farage is hiding from talking about fishing and farming, and John Redwood, credit to him, takes it head on. I'm going to talk about fishing and farming, he said. But rebuilding? You mean the rebuilding that has to take place because of the damage caused by Brexit? Is that the rebuilding he means, I wonder? And how does he propose we rebuild those industries? Again, is wanting everyone to solve his problems for him. Oh, it's the government needs to do that. I don't have to come up with any ideas. But it's like every other sector of our economy. Fishing and farming rely upon supply and demand. Now, Brexit didn't harm supply. It harms demand. We can't sell as much as we did before. All of his solutions involve reducing that demand still further. Oh, we should just catch more of our own fish. We already can't sell our current capacity. Have you not seen the protests amongst fishermen? All the calls to be able to land more fish in British waters have been exposed by the fact we cannot now even sell what we catch. What's the point of catching more? Frankly, the only way to rebuild these industries is to, at the very least, join the EEA. There is no mechanism for us to be able to sell what we produce right now without that as a bare minimum move, making the idea of producing more absolutely ridiculous. Fair spat my Vimto out at the comment about intelligent use of UK public sector buying. I mean, we've just had a year of his government, his party, shoveling billions to made-up companies or companies that make t-shirts or catch rats, for example, to deliver much-needed PPE, much of which never arrived or wasn't useful if it did, or to manage testing in the country, when we had companies who could have actually delivered the relevant goods and services being largely ignored. We will get less intelligent spending of public money, not more. We've seen that. Not that that's anything to do with Brexit, that's just the government we have. And the idea of creating more jobs in the UK is also perverse. Again, job creation is linked to economic growth. It's not always strongly linked without close government attention. You can't just trust the market, but it's still a positive correlation. To create jobs, you need to grow the economy. To grow the economy, you need to attract overseas investment and increase exports. Now, even British companies are investing abroad now after Brexit. They've said that they wanted to expand in this country. It can't. The only way for them to continue doing business in many cases is to actually set up in the EU. Actual foreign investment's really struggling. As for increasing exports, I already talked recently about the net reduction in market access that we have around the whole world. If you want to boost exports, you need better trade deals, not worse ones. But there you are, John Redwood, like Nigel Farage, always good for a laugh. Though to be fair to Redwood, like I said, he doesn't go off sulking every few years. He's always there dragging our national IQ down a few points. But speaking of Farage, one of his former cronies, Lance Foreman, a former Brexit Party MEP, has also been tweeting. He said that he doesn't believe that Brexit will bring a negative economic impact. I mean, it already has. That's established fact now. Huge, in fact. Economists thought that the pandemic would initially cover the economic harm of Brexit because COVID has brought a spectacular recession, especially bad for us, worst in the world in terms of the developed world for us, but one that should ease within a few years. It's a big old spike down and then back up again. Whereas Brexit will produce a shallower but much longer economic slump. It will be more costly in the long run than COVID, but because it's more gradual and the worst of it was supposed to be hidden by the pandemic, it will be less noticeable to people not paying attention. In other words, the general voting public. But the impact was immediate and devastating. The government said that January was bad because reasons, but it's fine now, and they said that back in February. Now we have the January figures. So what we needed to see was the February figures then. We don't have the February figures, unless I'm missing them. But we should have the February figures. It's been over a month now since we got January's, so that means we should now have February's. So why the hold-up in the latest figures if they vindicate the government's assertion that the problems were limited to just a few weeks of teething problems in January? He also complains about our rights to free movement and free trade being taken away, but he didn't do it, he says. There's nothing to do with me. But here's the thing. EU citizens enjoy free movement around Europe. They also enjoy free trade amongst themselves, as well as many other important economies around the world. When we were in the EU, we enjoyed those same freedoms. Now there is a big old spot in Europe where that free trade and free movement doesn't exist for EU citizens, and it's shaped like Britain. And for British citizens, that don't happen to be Irish that is, that freedom of movement has been wiped out across the rest of Europe. Free trade has also ended. So what is he trying to suggest? That those freedoms are nothing to do with Brexit, even though they occurred on the day of Brexit? Or that the EU have imposed them upon us? Again, the spiteful revenge tactic. But how can they do that if we're no longer part of either the EU, their customs union, or single market? Now, another case of someone who hasn't got the guts to accept the consequences of their campaign. Both Redwood and Foreman removed our rights, knackered our economy, destroyed our futures. The rest of us will now have to fight to secure a future for the next generation of Britons now, even though we may never regain them in any serious form ourselves. And these people had better pay the price in future history lessons for this mess. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.